historical modes of writing. In the first lecture, I only discussed the narrative writing. Today we are going to discuss rest of the modes of writing. So after narrative, the next mode of writing we will discuss is descriptive, and then in the same order compare contrast, cause effect, process and persuasion. So when you are asked to write a paragraph for your graded assignment, your paragraph will belong to one of these 6 modes. Rest of the information about the paragraph remains same. The structure of the paragraph remains same. You have the topic sentence first, you have the supporting details or supporting sentences after the topic sentence, and finally you have a concluding statement. That structure remains same, but the mode of writing will change according to the subject or topic that you choose. Now for descriptive writing, in descriptive writing basically we use strong sensory details which relate to 5 senses. So are you aware of 5 senses?
Yes.
These are? Very good. Sight, smell, taste, hearing. Very good. So when you write a descriptive paragraph, you should deliberately use such adjectives or such adverbs in some cases which are connected with these 5 human senses. You should begin your paragraph with the writer's main impression of that particular subject or the thing. For example, if you want to write a paragraph on your car, maybe the first impression about that car is that it is a technologically advanced car. Okay, or maybe the first impression about the car is that it is shiny, it is colorful, okay, whatever. But start with the first bigger impression of the car which it might have on the viewers, and then use special order for organization. So when you organize your paragraph and when you write the supporting details, move from one side to the other side. For example, you can move from the exterior of the car to the interior of the car, or you can move from the interior of the car to the exterior of the car, but maintain an order. Do not first talk about the big lights and then suddenly jump into the soft seats, and then once again get back to the rigid tires. So first describe the outer look. Once you are done with that, then move into the car and then describe the inner look. That will give an order, an organization to your paragraph. This kind of organization is called spatial organization. That is, you are managing the space from one side or from one end to the other end. Or if you're writing about the building, again, you can first talk about the outer side of the building, and then you can write about the inside of the building. Here is one example of descriptive writing. Anybody would like to read the paragraph loud? Please, go ahead.
Lake Harriet is a great place.
So Lake Harriet is name of a lake. The descriptive paragraph is about that. Please go ahead.
Lake Harriet is a great place to swim and relax. In the summer, the water is warm and clean, and the beaches attract people seeking relief from a midsummer heat. In addition to swimming, visitors
To the lake.
Visitors to the lake can go canoeing, sailing, windsurfing, or fishing. The blue water is a refreshing, tempting sight. The sweet scent of sunblock wafts through the air from sunbathers lying on the beach. Children laugh and splash in the water, and nearby volleyball games stir passionate shouts in the heat of competition. Meanwhile, lifeguards sit atop their towers and make sure everyone is safe. In the distance, sailboats catch the soft breezes that ripple Lake Harrier's surface, and canoeists glide quietly past. This is what summer is all about.
Good. Now take 2 minutes and note down the sensory details in this paragraph. What are the words? Just point out the words, maybe adjectives, which are giving us sensory details. Okay, so one word from each one of you. Very good. Warm. Warmth. Okay, this is like sense of touch. Alright, it is a sensory detail. Any other word? You said clean? Sense of sight. Okay, clean. You can see, usually you can see cleanliness. Okay, good. Sweet. Sweet scent. Which smell is that? Smell, of course. Yeah.
Children laugh and splash in the water.
Okay,
Hearing
laugh.
and touch.
Good. Laugh and splash, hearing and touch both.
Water is refreshing.
Refreshing? Yeah, it kind of is a mixed sense. Okay, maybe we can view it, we can cite it as well. Okay, soft. Okay, if you just say breeze, then probably it doesn't evoke sense of sight. But if you say soft breeze, then softness has a sense of touch. Say it again. Wind surfing, uh, uh, to some extent maybe, but it is an action. Okay, but you need to, for example, look at this expression, blue water. If you just say water, it is not sensory, but if you say blue, then it is sensory because it is sense of sight. Now tempting will be a little difficult to you know perceive through any of the senses. Tempting is not something that you can see, or that you can smell, or that you can touch. uh, Shouts is fine. Yeah,
Sit atop their towers.
yeah, we can cite that, we can view, because they are on the height, atop the tower. But I won't say it is sensory detail as such. We can see many things, but to see the things with a sensory detail is something else. So for example, white towers. So whiteness is kind of something we can visualize, therefore that will become sensory detail. All right, so you all got the idea of what sensory details are. You might also notice that it starts from the lake. Okay, description starts from the lake itself. Okay, but then the description broadens itself, and then to the extent that it goes to the sailboats which are in the breeze, and canoeing, uh, and then to a general description that summaries. This is what summer is all about. Okay. Next mode of writing is compare contrast. So when you are asked to write a paragraph using compare and contrast mode, then you are supposed to analyze two subjects or two things by comparing them or contrasting them. You do not just state the obvious similarities or dissimilarities. Rather, you should come up with subtle details or subtle differences or similarities between both things. For example, if you are asked to make a comparison between the sun and the moon, do not just say that both are bright, because that is obvious. But come up with something which is a little less obvious. Alright. When you write the topic sentence for this kind of paragraph, you should clearly state what are the two subjects you are going to compare and what kind of comparison are you going to make. Are you going to show the similarities or are you going to show the dissimilarities? You can organize this kind of paragraph by subject or by points. By subjects we mean that you can first take one subject and describe it. Then you can take the second subject, describe it, and then write another paragraph where you can say that how both of those things are either similar or they are not similar, if you organize by subject. On the other hand, if you organize by points, then you can move from point to point. For example, you can first compare both things on the basis of their color. And then in the second point, you can compare both of the things on the basis of their size. And in the third thing, you can compare both of things on the basis of their texture, okay, or their context, or where they are found, okay. It's very important to use phrases of comparison and contrast, okay. We will look at the example that will make things a little more clear. Now here is one example. This is a little longer essay than you people are supposed to write, but it will give you a better idea of how comparison and contrast work. So anybody would like to read these first two paragraphs? Let's begin from this one. Yes, who's going to read? You? You at the end? Can you read the paragraph please for us? Can you see it clearly? Okay. I want you to read starting from here, from Harry until here.
Can a hero and villain ever be like?
Okay, please read the title also.
Harry Potter
Versus
Draco Malfoy.
good.
Can a hero and a villain ever be like? Strangely, it would seem like the answer to that question would be no. However, when it comes to Draco Malfoy and Harry Potter, the two are more alike than you realize. Comparing and contrasting these two unique characters based on their destinies, families, and friends can show you how Harry and Draco have more in common than might think.
Okay. Can you tell me which of the sentences in this paragraph can be a topic sentence?
Can I include
Okay.
like between?
Okay, it can be any other sentence which you can think looks like a topic sentence. A topic sentence should have two qualities for compare and contrast. It should clearly mention two subjects and the kind of comparison which is being made.
So when it comes to Draco and Malfoy and Harry Potter, the two are more alike than you.
You are saying it? Okay, good. Yeah. So, yes, I think I will agree with that. As far as the first sentence is concerned, I also have this feeling that it could be a topic sentence. But the problem is that we want a topic sentence over here which clearly mentions the subjects which are being compared. Okay. But look at this sentence, comparing and, However, when it comes to Draco Malfoy and Harry Potter, two subjects clearly mentioned. The two are more alike than you realize. So the nature of comparison is that the writer is showing their likeness with each other or their similarity with each other. So both things are there. So there are greater chances for this sentence to be a topic sentence. So when you write your paragraph, you have to follow exactly the same pattern. Write a topic sentence in which you mention both the subjects being compared and the nature of comparison. You might also say, when it comes to Draco Malfoy and Harry Potter, the two are more different from each other than you realize. In that case, you will have to write the rest of the paragraph accordingly. Alright, let's move to the second paragraph. Yes, please, second paragraph.
You can't control your fate. The truth of these words for Harry Potter and Draco Malfoy drives the paths of their lives. However, how each different boy's fate unfolds is what makes me consider the hero and the rebellion. Harry Potter is described to be the chosen one. He did not choose this destiny, but it was from him as a child because of how events unfolded for his family. On the other hand, Draco Malfoy has family
Expectations.
expectation of siding with and supporting the Death Eaters because of his father's affiliation. Failure to follow Voldemort could lead to not only his death but that of his son.
Okay, now students, my question to you is, what is the point of comparison in this paragraph? Two characters have been compared on what point? On which point? On what basis?
Who is the hero or who is
How
the
each
villain?
different one.
But Sadhu, what you said?
However, वो each different boys fate and so is what is one considered the hero.
Okay, I know the answer. The answer to my question is over here. But tell me the point, the word.
Destiny.
Very good. Destiny. Both the characters have been compared on the basis of fate or destiny in this paragraph. Okay, the writer has pointed out that both characters can be similar to each other on the basis of kind of destiny that they have come across. Alright, now this is the organization of the paragraph according to points. So in this paragraph, both characters have been compared on the basis of their fate. In the next paragraph, they have been compared on the basis of their families. And still in the next paragraph, they have been they have been compared on the basis of the kind of friends they have. Okay, and then
Characters.
yeah, other characters are the friends which they have in the novels, right? And then here is a concluding statement. Would you please write this last paragraph too? Yep. Last paragraph. Can you read the last paragraph too?
When you compare and contrast Draco and Harry, it's easy to see the boys are not as different as it seems. If their family or friends had been different, then their fates could have easily been changed. So it begs to question, are a hero and a villain defined by good and evil?
Okay, all right. So, what do you think is a concluding statement in this paragraph?
When you compare and contrast Draco and Harry, it's easy to see.
Okay, good. Yeah, all right. Because here is the answer. When you compare and contrast Draco and Harry, it is easy to see the boys are not as different as it seems. Conclusion is given. Okay, all right. Now, can you identify a phrase or a word of comparison or contrast in this paragraph? What do we mean by a phrase of comparison or contrast, or a word of comparison or contrast? Just one word of comparison or contrast.
Like,
Alike, very good. Alike. Why? Because the word alike helps us think about the comparison between these two characters, which is that they are similar with each other. So other phrases of comparison and contrast could be different from, similar to, comparable with, similarities between, dissimilarities between. You should deliberately use such phrases and words in a compare-contrast paragraph. Moving on to cause and effect paragraph. The cause and effect paragraph has a topic sentence which states main cause, main effect, or various causes and effects of a condition or event. So a main cause and a main effect basically. This paragraph is organized either by putting the cause first or putting the effect first. So you can begin your paragraph about a particular condition by first describing its causes and then its effects. Or you can do other way around as well. So for example, if you are writing on the outbreak of COVID in the United States, okay, so you can first describe its causes, which could be lack of social distance, maybe carelessness of the government, non-seriousness of the government, and like others like this, causes. And then you can come to effects. Effects are economic effects, effects on education, effects on psychological health of people. All right. So 3 causes, 3 effects, enough. This is the organization of the paragraph. You can also have the effects first. You can begin by saying that COVID-19 has drastically impacted the life of the citizens in the United States. It has, for example, disturbed the economy. It has devastated the education system, and then it has impacted the psychological health of people. So if effects come first, and then you can describe the causes, and you can move on to say that there are various causes for the uncontrollable outbreak, and then you can describe the causes, non-seriousness of government, and then you can write lack of social distancing, okay, and then you can add another cause to it. Both ways are valid ways, but don't mix causes and effects. That will confuse your reader. Okay, so both organizations are possible. Include strong evidence linking the cause and effect. So you have a strong evidence for all the causes and effects that you are giving. Also use phrases of causation. We will see an example and we understand many of these things. Now here is an example. The topic is homelessness. Anybody would like to read the first paragraph here? Who else? Would you like to read? Go ahead.
The homeless epidemic is a serious problem in nearly every major city across the country. According to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, there are over 5 lakh people experiencing homelessness on any given night. It is a difficult challenge to tackle precisely because it is so multifaceted, both in terms of its causes and its far-reaching effects. Homelessness affects not only the people who must struggle to survive on the street, but also the business owners or residents in the neighborhoods. Petty crime and drug abuse are common. While many factors have contributed to the rise in homeless rates, one of the most profound is the lack of adequate social support services.
Okay, lack of adequate social support services. So probably the topic sentence is very obvious. If we go by our older definition, that is a theme, main idea, and an opinion about it. So the main idea is the homelessness, and the opinion is that it is a serious problem. All right. So we introduce the topic over here. Because you are going to write a small paragraph, in that paragraph you don't need to write one whole paragraph just for introduction. Maybe 1 or 2 lines are enough. But one of those lines must be your topic sentence. So what is the problem and what is your opinion about it? And then you can give causes of that. All right. So let's read just the one cause to understand how it works, and then we can move on to the effect. Yes, please continue.
By definition, a homeless person is someone without a permanent home. They may seek shelter in parking garages, ATM vestibules, and subway stations. On a purely practical level, if a city can provide enough homeless shelters and other forms of affordable housing, the people who would otherwise sleep on the streets can sleep far more safely with a consistent roof over their heads.
Okay. So can you tell me what is the first cause the writer has pointed out? The cause of homelessness.
No shelter.
No shelter. So what is the cause of no shelter?
Without a permanent roof.
Okay, of course they are without permanent home, but what is the cause of it?
So unemployment,
Affordability.
Fo-
unemployment, lack of
No, but hold on. So do we find affordability over here? No, do we have this argument about affordability or the unemployment over here? No. So what is the cause in this passage?
affordable housing.
Okay, maybe okay. So this is the word which is because of which you both are using this expression. So who will make it affordable? The government. So basically, the cause is city. So in fact, this word city is a little unclear because in American context, city is the government. Okay, in our local context, we usually use the word government whenever we need to say because we don't have local body system. So hardly we think of any local councillor or any city government. We always think of at least chief minister. Is that right? So that is why you are not able to identify. Otherwise, I think it could, if they use the word government, if a government can provide enough homeless shelter, then probably it would have been a little more clear. But the first cause, I think partly what you are pointing out is correct. The first cause is the government itself. Okay, because government is not making the houses affordable. That is why people are homeless. Okay. Okay, let's move to the effect. Now, look, it is very well organized. From the city problem, he moves to the social, or she moves to the social support service problem. Okay, and then the individual support or family support problem. We have family support in our country, for example, but in the US, it almost does not exist. Okay, people do not usually provide. Kind of a shelter or accommodation to their extended families. Okay. So effects. What are the effects of it? Just one effect. Please continue to read.
The effects of homelessness are equally complex and can be mirror image of the root cause. Because the person is experiencing homelessness, this may put profound strain on personal relationships. Drug abuse can become an issue as a person seeks some way of coping with the pain and hardship of living on the streets. This leads to downward spirals that drives a person deeper and deeper into the depths of the crippling poverty and isolation.
Okay. So what is the major effect of homelessness? One major effect in this paragraph.
Personal relationship.
Personal relationships. Very good. And any other expression for the same thing? Huh? Drug abuse, excellent, yeah. So I think that is the crux over here. We can use one more expression. Uh,
Isolation.
Isolation, very good. All right. So psychological health, okay. The word psychological I think is not used here, but still that is what the author is pointing out. I think what three of you said was absolutely right. So effects, all right. So first causes are given, then effects are given, and finally there could be a conclusion. All right. Now I want you to point out any one word of causation in just these three lines or two sentences. What is the word of causation here?
Homelessness.
The word of causation, no, it's not homelessness. The word of causation.
Relationship.
What you said at the end?
Causes.
Effects.
Is there word causes here? Oh yeah, the root causes. Yes, it is one of the word of causation. Any other?
Effects.
Effects is word of causation. Okay. One more.
Experiencing homelessness.
No, that is not a word of causation. That is the cause or effect, whatever we call it, but not word of causation.
What?
So the last word over here, I don't think there is any other, is because. So basically, because is the word which I had in my mind. So the words of causation are the words or expressions which kind of very clearly and explicitly point out the factors, effects, or the reason of anything. Okay, so you should use those expressions in your cause and effect paragraph, because that will tell your reader that you are concerned about the effects or the causes of anything. So other expressions that you can use are like after effects, consequences, results. Okay, root cause is already here. Okay, so you can use such expressions as words of causation, phrases of causation. All right. Now, next form of writing or mode of writing is called process. Now, those of you who have been studying sciences in the past, they are already well aware of the process mode of writing. Who has done process mode of writing in the past? What was the context? What you did it for?
Just like generally.
Okay.
Till the second year in FSC, we used to write answers to questions, so it was a process type of writing.
Okay, any particular question that you can think of? Not exact question, but just the theme or subject.
Like drug abuse or diabetes. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So basically, if you or whenever you conducted experiments in a lab, you were usually asked to write the process of that experiment. If you are not able to write the process of the experiment, usually it was thought that you were not able to conduct the experiment successfully. So you conduct the experiment. For example, you see some slide under the microscope, but then you were required to write the process of doing that, how you did that. So process writing is about how you conduct something. In small kids at school, when they teach them process writing, they ask the kids to go home and help their mom or dad in making milkshake, mango milkshake or banana milkshake, okay? And then they are asked to write the process of that, okay? So first I took the milk out of refrigerator, and then I poured it into the blender, and then I poured mango slices in it, and so on and so forth. So process writing explains how to do something, how something works, maybe a machine or a microscope or a computer or both. The paragraph, process writing paragraph, opens with the discussion of the process, including the outcome of the process. It follows a chronological sequence. You must maintain a time sequence in writing a process paragraph. By time sequence, we mean exactly in the same order in which you undertook the process. So, if you are writing about the process of making the milkshake, don't write I drank the glass first. That doesn't make any logical sense, all right? You will write I enjoyed the sweet sip. You will write that at the end of the paragraph. So chronological order is the time sequence of the process. You must maintain that what is the first step, what is the second step, third step, fourth step, like this. Therefore, you should use time time transition phrases as well. Okay, so phrases like first of all is a time phrase, after that is a time phrase, later is a time phrase, at the end is a time phrase. Use them as many as you can. Here is an example of process writing. So who can read this one? Who has not read yet? Would you like to read? Would you like to read? Go ahead, please.
How hurricanes happen.
Yeah.
Hurricanes are high-speed windstorms that start over the ocean and can have winds as fast as 250 kilometers per hour.
Okay, you might notice that in this topic sentence, as we saw over here, opens with the discussion of the process, including the outcome of the process. Okay, so over here we see that a description of the process, that is hurricanes are what? They are high-speed windstorms, and then some description of what happens because of it and how they happen. They happen like this: start over the ocean, and what are the effects of it? Can have winds as fast as 250 kilometers per hour. Okay, please notice that in process writing you cannot give your opinion. Okay, you cannot say that hurricanes are good or bad. You cannot give your opinion. All right, therefore in the topic sentence of a process writing, we just describe the process in the topic sentence. Please continue.
Hurricanes usually happen over the ocean near the equator. They are formed when warm, wet air is formed upward the heavier cool air. The air pressure drops quickly from the outer edge towards the center. This causes the wind's speed to rise. The wind moves in the circular pattern around the center of eye of the hurricane. In the eye, the wind stops and clouds lift, but the ocean flow remains violent. The average hurricane covers an area of at least 240 kilometers. When the storm is over land, these winds destroy life and property.
Okay, so it is already indicated that this is the topic sentence. Over here the green print is supporting sentences, and here we have the concluding statement. But I want you to think of any time phrase over here. Do you find any time phrase or time word, time transition word over here, or time transition phrase? Very good, when. Okay, so in fact if you read the whole of it, when the storm is over. All right, why? Because it is pointing out the finishing of one step of the process and starting of the other step of the process. You won't find many time transitions in this passage because it is just one paragraph and you have to be really brief in a paragraph. But still, I'm sure you can notice a time sequence. Can you? Order of all the steps. Okay, so the first thing is that hurricanes, okay, they are formed when warm wet air is forced upward by heavier cool air. So the first step is this. The second step is the change of air pressure, and then because of that, then the third step is wind speed changes, and then eye of the wind or of the hurricane is formed, and then cloud lifts and the ocean becomes violent. All right, so time sequence has been followed, and then finally of course there is destruction. So destruction cannot happen before the hurricane. All right, it has to be in the same order. Okay, last mode of writing, it is called persuasion. So persuasion paragraph tries to convince somebody to our point of view. So you try to move reader toward a certain point of view, and there is a specific claim in persuasion paragraph, and you argue for that. You have to use very clear reason and strong evidence to support your claim, and you have to avoid any appearance of bias by not using the first person pronoun. Okay, so instead of saying that I argue, or I claim, you can say it is generally argued, so that you don't confront the other person. Let's see an example of persuasion. Persuasive essay sample. Why students should eat breakfast every day? How many of you do? You eat? Okay, good. Who did not eat breakfast today? Wow. 3 of you and 4. Wow. How can you survive in cold weather without breakfast? Adat? Okay. Anyways, it's very important to keep your belly full when you leave your home, because you have to spend the whole day working. All right. So this is the question: why students should eat breakfast every day. So this is the introductory paragraph, of course, which has the topic statement or thesis statement in it, and then the first reason is given. So first, let's read the first paragraph just to make sense of what kind of topic sentence we write, and then we will come to the argument or reason. Who would like to read the first paragraph? Who has not read yet? Go ahead.
A lot of people, especially young people, go through the day without having the breakfast. Many people believe that it is not necessary, or they say that they don't have time for that and begin their day with no meal. I believe that everyone should eat breakfast before going to their activities. The purpose of this paper is to show the importance of breakfast, especially for students.
Okay, so kind of in 2 sentences, because it is a longer essay, it makes perfect sense. The writer has given the topic statement or topic thesis statement through 2 sentences. Okay, so everyone should eat breakfast before going to their activities. So the writer is taking a side, okay, and the side is, or the point of view of the writer is, that we should eat breakfast before we start our activities. So it is clear enough. Okay, in the same manner, when you write your persuasion essay, or persuasion paragraph, you should have a very clear topic statement right in the beginning. What is your position about it? Don't think too much about it. Just take one position and then support it. All right. So how to support it? Please continue.
The first reason why you should eat breakfast before going to school is for your health. When you skip breakfast and go to school, you are looking for a disease
Because
because it's not healthy to have an empty stomach all the day long. It's very important to have a meal and not let your stomach work empty. All you're going to get is
gastritis.
gastritis and a lot of problems with your health if you don't eat breakfast.
Okay. Now this is the argument. Okay, that is what we learned over here, that we should use clear reasons and strong evidence, and then we need to argue a specific claim. So the specific claim is what? That we should eat breakfast. That is the claim. That is specific claim. And then there is argument. This is the first argument, and the writer has given more arguments. Another reason, the last reason. These are the arguments. Now each argument should have a clear evidence. Okay. Now evidence is something which looks like scientific, logical. All right. So over here the writer has on purpose used some medical vocabulary to convince his reader or her reader. So the writer says, if you don't eat breakfast, you can get gastritis.
So we can use proverbs.
Proverbs? Sometimes yes, it is possible. In some cases, it is possible. Yeah, I'll come to that in a minute. So when you use such scientific vocabulary, you are kind of convincing your reader that whatever you are saying is not your personal opinion only. Rather, it is a scientific fact. No argument about it. It is a scientific fact. So if you are hungry all day long, you are going to suffer. All right. So this is a good way to write your arguments in your persuasion essay. Sometimes the topic is like that you cannot provide scientific facts for that, or you cannot provide any medical facts for that. For example, if the topic is like this, should we have political rallies in the country? So, well, in COVID-19 times, you can have a medical argument also. You might say that it will cause COVID-19, but imagine we are COVID-19 free world, and then somebody asks, should we have political rallies in the country? Now, if we take, for example, a position in favor of it, that yes, we should have political rallies, then we need to give very clear evidence for our claim that we are making. Now, it is very hard to give any scientific reason. Now, it is possible for us to give some logical reasons which even if are not scientific, but still they look logical. Okay, for example, you might say, man is a political animal. So what Sadhu was saying, that can we use proverb? So this is a proverb, that man is a political animal. Okay, so proverbs sometimes have power, you know. If somebody is not listening to you and you speak a famous proverb, so proverb is a common wisdom. Okay, so sometimes it makes sense to use a proverb in your persuasion writing if the topic is not scientific.
So it can be used in the topic sentence, like the first line proverbs can be used.
I will suggest you should not use. Why? Because it should always be your statement, your topic sentence. I have seen some passages or essays starting with a proverb. They have a different purpose. They are called eye catchers. Okay, if you want to use that only in a longer essay. You can start your essay with that, but then after that give your topic sentence also. Don't treat that as a topic sentence. All right. So this is about persuasion writing, and these are all modes of writing. So what we have discussed is that there are 6 modes of writing. The first one is narrative, in which we use some conflict and describe the sequence of the events. And then we have descriptive writing, in which we are supposed to use sensory vocabulary, and we organize the details in a spatial order. And then we have compare and contrast, where we should use the vocabulary of compare and contrast, and we should clearly state in the topic sentence what are the 2 subjects we are going to compare and what is the nature of comparison. And then we discussed cause and effect as a mode of writing. In it, we organize the paragraph according to the causes of a problem or causes of a phenomenon, and then effects of the problem or effects of the phenomenon. And then process writing is about describing a process in a sequence, in a time sequence, and we should maintain the chronology of the events or the steps that we are describing. And finally, persuasion. In persuasion, we should have a very clear claim in the topic sentence, and then we should provide strong evidence as the arguments in the writing. So this is about the modes of writing, and end of